Welcome to You're 18, Now What? Thank you for joining me on this great Tuesday. I'm Dr. Catherine Gilstein, and I am looking forward to empowering you with information about financial literacy and economic empowerment. I will continue to post on the second and fourth Tuesday of the month, but I will be adding to my podcast because I have such great interviews lined up. Today, I am joined by George Thomas, who is CEO of Financial Freedom Builders, and we're going to discuss managing expenses and new investments. So, George, thank you so much for joining me. I am so sure that you have valuable information for the listeners. So, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started.
Yeah, well, Dr. Gilstein, first off, I appreciate the invitation. I love what you're doing
Thank
here for
you.
this generation and this
Thank
age
you.
bracket. Such an important age bracket in our society, and definitely they need attention. And I'm glad you're giving it. So,
Mm, yeah,
yeah, so
our
my
future leaders, absolutely. Yes.
yes,
Mm,
ma'am.
mm,
So my name is George. I started it. So well, first I'm a husband to my wife of 9 years. Name is Kathy. I have three beautiful boys. And I started this
nice.
coaching journey about 15 years ago. I originally got into banking, had a bachelor's in finance, got my MBA, over a decade ago. Decided to go back into that, but the journey with the coaching was based off of a calling I felt led to do just to help people along the way. I come from humble beginnings. My parents were immigrants from the Dominican Republic, came to United States in pursuit of the quote unquote American dream, and
Absolutely.
wanting to create a future for my sister and I, who just recently got married, by the way. So shout out to her. She got married last
Oh,
weekend.
congratulations. Nice.
Yeah. And so they worked very hard and they did what they could to provide us the life that we had today. We're both very thankful for it and are doing very well. But, a lot of times when you're coming from, these other countries to the States, you're not necessarily exposed to the rules of the game on how money really works. And so they
Absolutely
went on a
true.
journey of going strictly trading time for money. And they did very well trading time for money, but became very tired. They had to put a lot of dreams to the side or delay at the minimum. And so I didn't necessarily want to pursue that road. I got exposed to a lot of individuals that knew how money operated, and I got to learn from them. And so I went on a different journey, different path, and found the journey to financial freedom. And so along the way, my wife and I decided that as we're on this road, we decided to take a pause and turn around and find anybody along the way that hasn't found this road, that's interested in doing what it takes to get on that road, and we wanted to be the bridge to that gap.
That's great. Really, really great. And I say it all the time, money is so important, but nobody wants to talk about it.
That's right.
So like where do you start? How do you know, especially when you come from here and you are, first generation American from immigrant parents and you don't know the rules of the game. You don't know how credit works. You don't know how banks work and how do you find the information? So getting that information out there is really important. Who is your core audience that you're looking to get,
Yeah,
that you're
so
working with?
that's a great question. So, the beautiful part about finances is that there's a quite the spectrum, but you can't reach everyone. There's a lot of great people, a lot of great organizations doing great things that are specific for certain classes and the like. But for us in particular, we usually find individuals anywhere between 18 to about 45 tend to be the zone where folks are. Usually the working American
Mhm.
trying to pursue
Perfect.
those goals, those dreams, maybe needing structure and guidance. So we find a lot of times young adults that are going into adulthood looking for structure, young couples, young married couples, couples with children. And then in recent time, we have found that we've been exposed to more college-related athletes, and so we're working a lot of times with Division 1
Okay.
athletes, especially with all the exposure with the compensation that they're getting and
And
beyond.
the contracts, yes.
That's right. There's a young individuals that are being exposed to a lot of income, but maybe a lack of information in between. And so being able to bridge that gap is also another route that we've been involved with. But primarily young folks, aspiring individuals looking to do something and hit their peak between 18 and 45 is usually the folks that we work with.
hmm That's great, and it's very interesting because I've spoken to other financial advisors in the past. I've interviewed them. I've had them on my show, and a lot of times people are really hesitant about reaching out to somebody for guidance for their finances because they're thinking, oh, I don't have 100,000 saved already. I don't have 250,000 saved already.
Hmm.
And I always say on my podcast, wherever you are in your financial journey, you deserve representation. So
Powerful.
absolutely reach out, especially when you're just starting out, because that's when it's important to start, planting those seeds for the future. So you don't need to have $100,000 put aside already. You need to start with someone at the beginning. And
That's
like you
right.
said, whether they are, just moving out on their own, just in their career, or maybe they just got married. So now you got married, now your finances change. Maybe you're having your first child, now your financial, needs
That's right.
change. So it's always a constant to have that communication with the person you're working with.
That's right, Dr.
So
Gilstein. And to be honest with you, I'll tell you,
mhm,
and I can relate with that, especially in my humble beginnings, being married, I started with not a lot. And
mhm,
I was a hardworking individual. I worked very hard. My wife was gonna be expecting our first child, and it was this circumstance where we decided that it was better for her to stay back with our first child. We didn't want anyone just watching our kids, so we wanted to take on the ownership. But in doing that, it hindered her from being able to work. And so I was making good money and I was working really hard, but we were not really getting anywhere as fast as we wanted to. And so
mhm,
it put me at a predicament because and this is where a lot of times, to your point, Dr. Gilstein, people struggle with is, I'm making an honest living. There's a pride about what I do. I get up, I go to work, and I do
absolutely.
the sacrifice. And for me to go ask someone for help, it's almost as if this is how I used to feel, at least back in the day, as if I'm coming in almost as an inferior to this other individual that's supposed to tell me, almost they're trying to son me or daughter me as to how
Mhm,
I'm supposed to do my things. But I'm a grown adult, I work hard and all these things. But the problem is that with that mentality and that perception of what you think the audience of your listening to your concerns are, you're really essentially wasting a lot of time. Because if you're more transparent and vulnerable about where you are, then if you're talking to the right individual who's empathetic, who's relatable, who's knowledgeable and can guide you, they can provide you true solutions to your issues that you're having. And this doesn't mean that you're necessarily there's something wrong with you. It's just it needs a small tweak that will help augment the fact that you're putting so much time and effort for working. But once I removed that barrier, I started seeing things differently, started doing things differently, it changed my life. And so yeah, if you're listening to this and you're very private about your finances or prideful or
mhm.
not trusting of things, there's a space for, of course, you have to be careful about who you're talking to, but you have to give yourself the ability to be vulnerable so that you can receive the help that you need.
Yeah, there is definitely a vulnerable aspect to it, and putting your guard down, being able to trust the right people, and with the information that's out there, it's also possible that you're getting wrong information. So
Mm,
make sure you're doing your due diligence and you're finding the right people to talk to, and the people that I showcase on my podcast, you know, I we talk, we interview, we go through, we go deep and say, hey, where did you start? How did you do? What is your background? What is your credentials and stuff? And you need to ask those questions. So
yes,
if you're going to be, you know, going out into that route and making yourself vulnerable to someone, you need to make sure that you are speaking with the right people.
that's right.
And, you know, but to your point, it's that first step of letting the guard down
That's
and
right.
saying, first, step one, I need help. And absolutely nothing wrong with needing help. Not everybody is great at everything. Usually in a relationship when you're married, usually one person handles the finances and the other person does not, because that one person is just a little bit better at it. So let
That's
them
right.
take it on, you know. And I think that's important to know. Know what your weaknesses are, know where you need help, and then find out how to do that.
So two things there, Joe. One is
Ahead.
that I'll give you a true story about myself on that. When I was going through that and being transparent, one of the things that I didn't put one and one together, and then the light bulb came on once I got some guidance, I was paying off. So I had, I had been married, and so my wife, when she got married to me, she already had a vehicle that she had been having for some time. Her, through her family, they had bought it for her at the time when she had graduated from college years ago, etc. So she comes into our marriage, and so now this is part of now under my responsibility to help with her to do it together to pay off this vehicle, continue the journey. And so, we're taught at a young age, oh, put a little extra, to pay towards the
Mm-hmm.
principal. It moves a little faster, et cetera, et cetera. So, of course, I'm implementing things, the basic principles of, how finances work. So I'm doing this, I'm doing the deed, I'm doing the thing, and off we go. And I'm looking at the balance and I'm saying, you know, I'm not sure why this thing's not moving. And I remember getting visibly frustrated that I'm like, I'm putting extra, but I don't think this is denting. And at this rate, my oldest son's gonna be in college by the time this thing is paid off, even though I'm putting extra
Mm-hmm.
every month.
Right.
So one of the basic tips that came in, a buddy of mine said is, well, have you checked the interest rate? I said, no, I haven't. It says, I don't know what it is, but if you're putting extra and your balance isn't moving, there's probably an interest rate problem going on there in some capacity. I was like, okay, let me check it out. Turned out, believe it or not, that the car had a 13% interest rate for the car loan.
Ouch.
The
Ouch.
money essentially I was putting quote unquote towards the principal was essentially going straight to the trash because the
Mm-hmm.
interest that was on there was consuming whatever extra payment. That's why. So all of a sudden, I'm like, wait a minute. If that's the case, then why
Mm-hmm.
do what? Why do I have this car? I'm either going to refinance this car, I'm going to get rid of it because clearly this loan is an
Absolutely.
absolute loser.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly, but if I wasn't transparent, how I might still be paying that car payment today. And so that's one detail. And then the second one, I was
Mm-hmm.
laughing when you were saying about how in a relationship one person may be the one that manages the finances, one's the other one. With me, and I love my wife to death, but I manage the finances, and my wife is giving me the ability to continue to sharpen my skills as to how I manage the finances because she continues to spend on the other side. So I got to keep getting more and more creative. So yeah, no, it's a great point you
More
bring
and
up.
more, more and more creative.
Yeah.
That's definitely funny, but it is true. There are, there's other things to look at, and another thing is that sometimes you're making the extra payment, but it's not going to principal. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to make sure, call the company and say, hey, I want to make extra payments and I want to make sure they're going to the principal, because if you're just making extra payments and your payment is 400 a month and you're paying 450, they're
Yep.
just going to tell you that next month you owe 350 instead of 400.
You
It's
got
not
it.
going to the principal. It's just going to lower that next monthly payment. So that's also something to look out for. And I think these are like those little nuances that if you're not in finance, if you're not in the business spectrum, if you're not in the financial aspects fields,
Yep.
you just don't know. And it's not being taught anywhere. So I think
No.
that's where I think it's really important to look to find reputable people who you can reach out to, who you can touch base with. How does your organization work? So someone comes to you and says, they look you up, Financial Freedom Builders. George, how do I start?
Yeah.
Tell our
So
listeners how they find you, how they start with you to work with you.
yeah, no, this is a great question. So the hardest part is getting to the point of saying that I'm going to take a step forward. That's the hardest part of this whole process. It's always the hardest part, right? It's just like in a
Absolutely.
relationship.
Mm-hmm.
If you
Sure.
find someone you like, letting them know that you like them, that's the hardest part. Usually, of course, life goes on, but things figure itself after that. So it's almost the same thing. Reaching out to us, inquiring about it. There's different tiers we have. We have the silver tier and the gold tier, but they all start at the same baseline. Someone signing up, we start with an introductory assessment. Usually takes about an hour, and it's not an interview. Honestly, really, it's more of a candid, just a regular conversation, getting to know each other, getting to know who
Mm-hmm.
I am, getting to know, I get to know who they are, get to know about their
Mm-hmm.
goals, get to know about their dreams, their
What's
families,
important to
etc.
them? Absolutely.
What's important to them.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, usually I then start with just one key basic elementary principle that's so important, right? And so on something, because if they don't do anything today, I left them with value from the conversation. Most people do take action, but in the event that they don't or they decide they don't want to, I want to leave them with something. I do believe, my faith's very important to me. And so, I did this
I
not
agree,
in,
mine too.
yeah, I didn't do this as for
Mhm.
the purpose of making money. I make money off of investments, I have real estate, etc. I did this basically off a calling that I felt that God put in my heart to do, and I've pursued it from the beginning. And so my purpose is to provide value to it, and give God glory every time I do it. And so, anyways, so I usually start with the basic principle, and if you're listening to this is, I would tell you, is probably the most fundamental principle when it comes to finances, is that the most key indicator, the most important indicator with finances is your net worth. Okay, and your net worth is calculated through an equation. Okay, it's your net income less your total expenses. The reason why it's net income is because we all pay taxes when we get it. So we don't get our total income ever because we have to pay taxes. If you're not paying taxes,
Mhm.
that is financial advice. Pay your taxes. Uh,
Absolutely.
right. And
Tax
so,
season is almost here.
yeah, you're right. And so the net income less total expenses. And so most people get hung up thinking that it's net income that's the most important thing, how much money you bring in. And so what happens is similar to the journey my family found ourselves in early on, when my folks moved here, is that I have to continue to work more and more to bring in more and more money. But the reality is that there are two factors or two ways you can increase your net worth. You can increase it by increasing your net income, making more money, get a second job, another business, etc., promotion. But that's
Mhm.
not the only way you can increase your net worth. You could also increase your net worth by decreasing your expenses. And so that's why somebody who makes $40,000, $50,000 a year can have a higher net worth than somebody making 200, 300, $400,000 a year. Because if in your
Absolutely.
calculation you are leaving money over from what's coming in, but your buddy who you went to school with that became a rocket scientist making 500 a year spends 500 and 1,000, then although it
Absolutely.
doesn't feel that way, you're essentially, your net worth is significantly higher than theirs. So we go with that, and then from there, we ask them then, of course, the basic questions, and then we just give them a very direct call to action, saying that, listen, you came today because something, you needed some change, and your moment to start making change starts today. And so we then put them on a
Mhm.
plan, and we have a private community, et cetera, et cetera. So it kind of goes from there.
That's really great. And I always say, you have to think about, and to your point, there's always something, some event or something that triggers it, that tells somebody, okay, today's the day I need to reach out and find some guidance, which is great. That first step. And then I always say, if you're not going to do it today, what's the cost of the inaction?
That's great.
Because now you're not taking action. So what's that going to cost you if you wait a week or a month? And sometimes you need to wait, and that's understandable.
Correct.
But when you feel yourself that you need to reach out, be ready to take action, because the cost of inaction could be greater than the initial cost.
That's right. It's absolutely right. I've seen so many people not take action because in their mind they start doing math too early. It's you have a problem, you're looking for a solution, you find a solution, but when the solution's available, you start doing math. Oh, well, I don't know how I'm gonna afford that, and oh wait, I got this bill coming in, etc. And those may very well be true, but
Hmm.
it took us time to find ourselves in a situation that we're in. And so if we're not willing to do something to disrupt the trend or where we find ourselves, disrupt the current, you will continue to go downstream, and there won't be a time where things will get better, and when things get better, I will do it, because you're going down a current that you've been swimming down for some
Yes.
time. So you have to
Hmm.
choose to be disruptive at some point. You know what? Even if I have to, swipe my card for a month to get started, I'm already in credit card debt. I'm gonna get started, and then from here, I'm gonna swim my way out. But you gotta find something to disrupt the trend, because you will swim down that current a lot longer than you think.
Absolutely. Any other any other tips, tricks that you want to add?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can go for days and I can talk for forever, and I don't want to talk
Oh
for
my,
forever, right?
oh, me too.
But I would say
Because it's a lot of information. It's a
it
lot of
is.
stuff.
It
It's a
really
lot
is,
to
Dr.
absorb.
Gilstein. You're
Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
right. What
Mhm.
one of the things that I've always have learned is that the power of investing, right? I'm so big on investing. We all are investing every day, and whether we realize it or not. And someone may say, "Well, I don't have a retirement account, so that's not true." Well, it is true because investing doesn't always have to necessarily require it to be money. You could
Correct.
be investing emotion, you could be investing
Hmm.
time, you could be
Time.
investing
Hmm.
any energy, you can be investing, whatever the case may be, but we're all every day investing into something. If you're in a relationship, you are throwing, whether it's affection, love, emotion, understanding, patience, all you're investing these things
Absolutely.
so that the relationship cultivates into something else, right? And so I'm so big when it comes to investing. And so a lot of times I tell folks that if you're listening to this and you're not investing financially for your future in some regard, whether it is in stocks or real estate or cryptocurrency or getting coaching or something, your money should be finding ways to make you more money. And sometimes what may seem as a cost is actually an investment because on the other end, you're cultivating more funds, right? Whether you get more information and financial literacy that will, hey, for example, I was throwing money away with my car payment. But if I didn't get guidance, I was going to still be paying that car payment for significantly longer. But the current changed, the car payment was gone, and then the cost savings came in. But the cost savings would only be there if I invested into getting the guidance. And so we can't be afraid to invest in everything in life. I just think that you can't see growth in anything you do in life without investing. And so that's one thing I would tell everybody, that you should be actively finding ways to continue to invest in all aspects of your life.
Absolutely. So, where can my listeners find you? Did mention Instagram earlier.
Yeah, I am on Instagram.
Hmm.
Lately I've been on this comedy tour there on Instagram. I actually have had some great loop. I usually tie it to finance, of course, but you can find me
Nice.
at Instagram at the Financial Constructor. As if you're almost like you're constructing, so the Financial Constructor. You can find me there on Instagram. I'd love to engage with you all. If you give me a follow, let us know that you're following us. I can, we don't mind answering questions, etc. And then of course we have our website
Mhm.
www.financialfreedombuilders.net.
Thank you so, so much. So, like I stated earlier, no matter where you are in your career, you deserve to have representation. Be open to learning, be open to listening, ask questions. What more do you want to know? Remember, be invaluable for what you share, not what you know. See you next time on your 18 Now What, where you can always find the latest podcast episode to listen to, follow, share, and subscribe. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate you. George, thank you so much for your insights.
Keep doing the work you're doing, Dr. Gilstein. It's extremely valuable. We need you.
You as well. Definitely need to get the word out there.
Yes, ma'am.